What does it take to start a war? Sometimes, all it takes is a single spark. For Texas, that spark wasn't a gunshot or an assassination. It was a tiny, borrowed cannon that the townspeople refused to give back. In Part 3, the Texans reached the point of no return. They had formed a provisional government and appointed an army. Now, in the fall of 1835 and the spring of 1836, they would have to fight for it. Get ready for the most dramatic 6 months in Texas history. We'll take you from the first act of defiance to the final, bloody battle that would decide the fate of a nation. This is the story of the Texas Revolution. If you're ready to witness the birth of the Republic of Texas, then charge that subscribe button and capture a like for the cause of history. Let's ride. The story begins in Gonzales in October 1835. The Mexican army had loaned the town a small cannon to defend against Native American raids. Now, with rebellion brewing, Colonel Domingo Ugartechea wanted it back. He sent about 100 soldiers to retrieve it. The colonists refused. They buried the cannon and sent for reinforcements. A group of women hastily stitched together a flag with a stark, defiant message. On the white banner, they painted a black star, a crude drawing of the cannon, and the legendary words, "Come and take it." It was a direct challenge. On October 2nd, the Texans, now numbering around 140, dug up the cannon, loaded it with scrap metal, and crossed the Guadalupe River to face the Mexican soldiers. A brief fight broke out. When the Texans fired their cannon, the Mexican troops, under orders to avoid a major battle, retreated. It was a tiny skirmish, but its impact was enormous. The Lexington of Texas proved the colonists were willing to fight. The war had begun. By February 1836, the war had moved to San Antonio de Bexar, where a small force of about 200 Texans occupied an old, crumbling Spanish mission known as the Alamo. They were led by Colonel William B. Travis. He was only 26, but he was a passionate and determined commander. His co-commander was the legendary knife fighter James Bowie, though he would fall desperately ill during the siege. Among the defenders was perhaps the most famous man in America at the time, David Crockett, a former congressman from Tennessee who arrived with his group of volunteers to fight for Texas liberty. On February 23rd, a massive Mexican army, led by Santa Anna himself, arrived in San Antonio and laid siege to the fort. Santa Anna raised a blood-red flag, meaning no quarter, no mercy would be shown. Travis knew they were doomed without reinforcements. He began sending out a series of desperate letters, pleading for help. The most famous of these was addressed to the people of Texas and all Americans in the world.
I am besieged by 1,000 or more of the Mexicans under Santa Anna. I shall never surrender or retreat. I call on you in the name of liberty, of patriotism, and everything dear to the American character, to come to our aid. Victory or death.
For 13 days, the small band of Texans held off Santa Anna's army, but no significant reinforcements ever came. In the pre-dawn hours of March 6, 1836, the final assault began. The Mexican army attacked from all sides. The fighting was brutal, hand to hand, and over within 90 minutes. Every single one of the Texan defenders, including Travis, Bowie, and Crockett, was killed. It was a crushing military defeat for the Texans. But Santa Anna's cruelty in executing the survivors and his massive losses turned the defeat into a symbol of heroism and a powerful rallying cry. A new slogan was born: "Remember the Alamo." While the Alamo was under siege, 59 Texan delegates were meeting at a small, unfinished building in a town called Washington on the Brazos. They knew they had to act decisively. A delegate named George Childress, a former newspaper editor from Tennessee, was appointed chairman of a committee to draft a Declaration of Independence. He wrote the first draft overnight. On March 2, 1836, 4 days before the fall of the Alamo, the delegates unanimously approved the Texas Declaration of Independence. The Republic of Texas was born.
The Mexican people have acquiesced in the destruction of their liberty. The necessity of self-preservation, therefore, now decrees our eternal political separation.
The delegates then worked frantically to create a constitution for their new nation and formed an ad interim, or temporary government. David G. Burnett was named president, and Sam Houston was officially made the commander-in-chief of all Texan armies. The news of the Alamo was followed by another tragedy. Colonel James Fannin and about 400 Texans were ordered to retreat from their fort at Goliad. They delayed, were caught on an open prairie, and after a fierce battle, were forced to surrender. The Mexican General Urrea assured them they would be treated as prisoners of war, but Santa Anna sent direct orders to execute them all. On Palm Sunday, March 27, 1836, the Texan prisoners were marched out of the fort in 3 groups and shot down in cold blood. Fannin was the last to be executed. The Goliad Massacre was a brutal war crime that horrified the Texans. It proved Santa Anna was a ruthless tyrant. Now the Texan army had 2 rallying cries. Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad. With Santa Anna's army sweeping across Texas, Sam Houston knew his small, untrained army was no match for a direct fight. He ordered a strategic retreat, burning towns and farms as he went, forcing civilians to flee in a panic known as the Runaway Scrape. Many of his own men called him a coward, but Houston was buying time, training his men and waiting for the perfect moment to strike. On April 20th, 1836, Houston's army finally stopped their retreat. They made camp in a grove of oak trees near the San Jacinto River. Santa Anna, overconfident and arrogant, made camp on a nearby plain in a vulnerable position. The next afternoon, April 21st, Santa Anna allowed his army to take a siesta. He believed the Texans were beaten and demoralized. It was the mistake he had been waiting for. Around 3:30 p.m., Houston gave the order. The Texan army, about 900 strong, crept silently across the field. They were a motley collection of farmers and volunteers, but they were filled with a burning desire for revenge. They got within yards of the Mexican camp before they were spotted. Then, the Texan cannons fired. A fife began playing the popular tune, "Will You Come to the Bower?" and the entire Texan line charged, screaming at the top of their lungs. Remember the Alamo! Remember Goliad! The Mexican army was caught completely by surprise. The battle was a slaughter. In just 18 minutes, the main Mexican force was defeated. The Texans had won one of the most decisive victories in military history. Santa Anna himself escaped during the chaos. He was found the next day, hiding in the grass, wearing a common soldier's uniform. He was brought before a wounded Sam Houston. The war was over. Texas was free. In exchange for his life, Santa Anna signed the Treaties of Velasco, promising to withdraw all Mexican troops and to recognize the independence of Texas. In the span of just a few months, Texas had gone from a rebellious state to a free and independent nation, the Republic of Texas. They had paid for their freedom with the blood of heroes at the Alamo and Goliad, and had won it with vengeful fury at San Jacinto. But winning the war was the easy part. Now, the new Republic of Texas had to figure out how to survive. They had no money, a powerful enemy who might return, and a vast, wild frontier to tame. How will Sam Houston lead this new nation? What challenges will the Republic of Texas face? You'll have to join us for our next and final part to find out. Thanks for watching. And be sure to subscribe so you can complete the journey. Now for our final question of the revolution. The Texas Revolution had many heroes. Which one do you find the most inspiring, and why? The passionate commander Travis, the famous frontiersman Crockett, or the strategic General Houston? Let us know in the comments. Remember the heroes, remember the cause, and remember that sometimes history is written in just 18 minutes. Until next time, stay curious.